United Nations Secretary General condemns Houthis' yesterday crimes and calls all parties to indulge in political talks. Embassy of the United States in Yemen rejects Houthis' execution crimes and says Houthi barbarism must end. The joint forces take up fierce clashes with Houthi rebels in different fronts in Hodeidah. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shazza Abdelbay. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the crime committed by Houthis in Sana'a yesterday. According to the spokesman for the Secretary General deeply regrets the Houthis' executions of 9 individuals yesterday, one of whom was reportedly a minor. The Secretary General strongly condemned these terrorist attacks, which are a result of judicial proceedings that do not abide with basic requirements of fair trial and international law. The Secretary General has urged all actors to cease the violence and to engage in peace without preconditions as to reach a comprehensive settlement. Today, the U.S. Embassy condemned the Houthi outrageous executions happened in Sana'a yesterday. Caddy Wesley said on Twitter, Houthi brutally executed 9 individuals. One of them was a minor in Sana'a on September 18, after a sham trial following years of torture and abuse. Wesley added, this outrageous action is another example of the Houthi indifference to basic human rights. The U.S. Embassy also condemned the Houthi attack on the commercial port of Mecca and stressed that the Houthi barbarism must end. Houthis committed a slaughter against 9 innocent civilians from Hodeidah yesterday. Such a crime goes beyond all human norms. Oddly, the international community is silent with no word to even condemn the crime. More on this story is within this report.
A state of sorrow overshadowed people in Yemen after the Houthi rebels executed 9, including a juvenile. The rebels claimed that the 9 innocent people helped in the killing of one of the Houthi political leaders back in 2018 in a coalition air raid. The crime is seen by many as a copy of the Iranian death committees in 1988. The rebels, who are backed by Iran, are reproducing the Iranian experience in Yemen. They are targeting weak sectors in the country and set them as an example for other people. The crime committed in the capital Sana'a wanted to send a message to the entire world that Houthis are conducting terrorist acts in the day brought light. The message is to shut mouth and drop arms of the resistance. The victims were forced to their final destination in the capital for their alleged role in the assassination of Saleh al-Samid, who was killed in Hodeidah in 2018 after an air raid for the coalition. The court ruling depended on a video for the victims in which they appeared in front of al-Samid in a conference hall just hours before his death. The 9 victims were charged with aiding the killing of the Houthi political leader by inserting a phone chip in the cloth of his companion in order to identify his location. Ironically, al-Samid's companion is still alive. Some of the victims were kidnapped from far locations and fake charges were attributed to them without any evidence. Houthi rebels, however, insisted on the execution. Rights organizations called upon the rebels to stop these death orders. Some activists described them as an execution for the whole Tihama, the very place which has been subject to historical, political, and social discrimination over years. A Yemeni writer said that the Houthis don't have anything to give the people in Yemen but death in all shapes. Death in the war fronts, death from hunger, execution without trial, or through politicized one. He added that the 9 people were executed after a farce trial. One other writer said that the execution of the 9 innocent people from Hodeidah after being kidnapped from their houses is a horrible crime perpetrated by the Houthis, while the media, activists, and the international community is shamefully silent. The execution that shocked Yemen must as well shock the insane world around. The international community should take a firm action to stop Houthi crimes against the innocent Yemeni people.
The Arab Parliament condemned the Houthi terrorist militia violations of human rights against the Yemeni people. It warned that the silence of the international community encourages the militia to continue its terrorist acts, referring to the execution of 9 innocents in Sana'a. The Arab Parliament called on all human rights organizations to condemn this cowardly terrorist act and to take the necessary legal measures. In Hodeidah, the joint forces clashed with Houthi rebels who tried to penetrate a number of fronts. The military media of the joint forces reported that the movements of the militia in the direction of Zabid were spotted and dealt with successfully. The military media added that the units stationed to secure the lives of citizens in Jabalia and Fazza engaged in clashes with the rebels using various weapons. 8 Houthi militants were killed and dozens were injured during those clashes. Medical sources revealed that hospitals and governorates of Hodeidah and Ib received more than 55 dead and wounded Houthis during the first 2 weeks of this month. The same thing in Sana'a and Damar. These losses for the rebels come from the western coast fronts, which have witnessed violent confrontations between the joint forces and the Houthi militia. The Ma'rib General Hospital has started an Egyptian medical camp. The mission comes from Al-Qasr Al-Aini Hospital and targets complex cases of the wounded from the government forces and the resistance. The mission will last for 10 days and aims at providing medical treatment for 210 cases of wounded members of the resistance. In Al-Jawf, mines and explosive devices planted by the terrorist Houthi militia have killed and wounded 910 civilians, including women and children. More on the story is within this report.
910 civilians were killed and wounded by mines planted by the terrorist Houthi militia in Al-Jawf. A recent report confirmed that the committee's team documented 282 cases of damage and material losses due to mines, of which 25 houses and 49 farms were damaged. Also, 97 cars and vehicles were completely damaged in various districts of Al-Jawf. Mine, the death planted by the terrorist Houthi militia in every shrub in Al-Jawf and lurking in the steps of all who set foot on it, to become a threat to their present and future. The local authority in Al Jawf published a report entitled Instilling Death, a summary of the pain that affected the people of the governorate between 2018 and 2021, which harvested their souls in nominal succession in the districts of Khub El Shaf and Al Maslub. Those districts are the most affected by Houthi mines, as well as the link road between El Yatama and Ma'rib. Statistics and figures for the victims of Houthi mines were many, which prompted the local authority to appeal to the United Nations to pressure the Houthi militia to stop committing crimes against the people of the province and hand over the maps of mines in Al Jawf. According to the report of the Human Rights Committee, the number of mine victims reached 288, most of them women and children, while the injured reached 621 distributed among individual mines, vehicles, and improvised explosive devices, not to mention the material losses caused to citizens' properties. While large areas of citizens' farms are still filled with mines and explosive devices, the mines left a difficult and tragic life for the people who were exposed to them and amputated half of their lives. This girl lost one of her legs due to a mine explosion and left her battling the difficulty of living. Like her, hundreds of victims are living in the governorate behind explosive mine nets, without the free word, moving towards the forgotten Houthi terrorism represented by mines and the explosives that ruined the lives of the Yemenis and turned it into hell.
Coming next. Angry rallies in Taiz due to high prices and hard living conditions.
ثالث على منطقة الروضة استهدف الأطفال الأبرياء اللي يلعبوا في الشارع بيدعي للسلام يقول له للسلام يقتل أطفالنا يقتل أطفالنا الأبرياء.
أنا قلت استجعت ولا قلنا يقع واحد صاروخ ثاني طلعت البيت حقنا عشان ألعب أنا وأصحابي والصاروخ انطرح.
Welcome back. The Yemeni rial has been witnessing a dramatic drop. This made prices go incredibly high. As a result, traders in Taiz started a partial strike while people stormed the city in angry rallies, calling on the government to take immediate actions. More on this story is within this report.
Recently, food prices have witnessed a significant increase in government-controlled areas due to the unprecedented deterioration in the history of the Yemeni rial. In light of this, traders in Taiz announced a partial strike that started on Saturday in protest against the collapse of the currency and the continuation of the siege imposed on the city. Taiz City Traders Bloc said in a brief statement, "We will carry out a 4-hour strike on Saturday. We will continue to escalate if demands are not met, including put an end to the collapse of the national currency, open the siege on the city, and find real solutions to stop the deterioration of the economy. Escalation steps will follow if demands are not implemented," the statement added. The partial strike began at 8 a.m. and ended at 12 p.m. and included centers and shops in Tahrir, Al-Jumlah and 26th of September Street areas. In the same context, people of Taiz took to streets against the increase in prices, deterioration of the service situation, and the continued devaluation of the Yemeni rial against foreign currencies. Protesters expressed their rejection of the continued rise in consumer prices and the low price of the Yemeni rial and called on the Yemeni government to control the rise in prices. In a statement issued by protesters, they condemned what it is described as the government's disregard for the tragedies of Taiz in light of the Houthi siege and the government's continued withholding of salaries. The statement called on the government to carry out its duties in stopping the currency's collapse, putting an end to the economic decline, providing basic services and civilian and military salaries, and putting an end to the corrupt and frivolous officials who deprive the state and undermine the existence and symbolism of legitimacy. Taiz joins other Yemeni governorates such as Hadramaut and Aden, which suffer from a frightening rise in prices and deterioration of the national currency amid constant silence and ignorance of the government to take decisive and urgent actions to improve the living conditions of Yemenis.
The Iran-backed Houthi rebels launched a massive tax campaign in Al-Sadda and Al-Nadira district's Ib Governorate. Local sources confirmed that a massive tax campaign was launched under the excuse of supporting the anniversary of the Houthi military coup against the Republican regime in 2014. The campaign targeted toll collection offices, government departments, and the private sector. The sources indicated that the militia demanded employees in government departments under its control to donate for its annual event while forcing retailers to allocate funds to revive the event. Local sources claim that the commission of remittance from Aden to areas under the control of Houthi militia announced to about 90%. According to the sources, the raised commission coincided with a general strike announced by exchange in Aden due to the collapse of the currency. The sources reported that the strike induced some exchange companies to raise their commission by taking advantage of the people's needs. In recent years, the conditions of students abroad have worsened. Sit-ins and vigils have escalated due to the delay to pay their financial dues, which has affected their educational aspect and their family stability, especially those who are accompanied by their families. The following report sheds more details.
The Yemeni authorities allocate $13 million every 3 months for students on scholarships in 32 countries around the world. A bachelor's student receives $1,800 every 3 months, compared to $2,100 for a master's or a PhD student. The allowances for Yemeni students were not delayed more than a week or two until 2014, according to the documentation of the investigation prepared by reviewing remittance data issued by the Yemeni Ministry of Finance. However, since mid-2015, the delays gradually increased, reaching 1 month and then up to 6 months in 2017. The General Union of Yemeni Students Abroad intends to launch a new phase of open sit-ins in protest against the Ministry of Higher Education's irregularity in dispersing students' financial dues. This comes as a protest against the irregularity of the Ministry of Higher Education in the legitimate government in dispersing financial dues to students over the past 5 years and its impact on the progress of their educational process. Yemeni students sent to study in Egypt launched an open sit-in at the Yemeni Cultural Attaché in Cairo. During their sit-in, the students accused the student unions of slackening in their role because of the partisan loyalties of the minister, they said. They called on all Yemeni students on scholarships abroad to move towards embassies and cultural attachés and to launch open sit-ins early next week until the leadership of the Ministry of Higher Education is dismissed and held accountable, and competent people are appointed who are able to take responsibility and propose appropriate solutions for the regular payment of their dues. Students suffer from double disadvantage: the continuous delay in the arrival of living allowances, as well as the interruption of university fees for 204 male and female students, who are threatened with expulsion due to the late arrival of fees from their countries. That's to say, about a third of the scholarships in Jordan. The Jordanian government is funding the studies of 383 Yemeni students under the Cultural Exchange Protocol. What students fear most is the expulsion from university housing or from rented homes due to the delay in the quarterly living allowances every 3 months. If they do not receive subsidies to pay the rent, when they cannot go back to university housing, where do these students go? To the street?
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 37 new cases of COVID-19 in 6 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 13 cases were recorded in Hadramaut, 10 in Ma'rib, 8 in Adan, 2 in Lahj, 2 in Shabwa, and 2 in Taz. Also 10 deaths were recorded, plus 15 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 8,630, including 1,638 deaths and 5,363 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. United Nations Secretary General condemns Houthi yesterday's crimes and calls all parties to indulge in political talks. Embassy of the United States in Yemen rejects Houthis' execution crimes and says Houthi barbarism must end. The joint forces take up fierce clashes with Houthi rebels in different fronts in Hodeidah. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.